What you have is you have this former Major League Baseball player, Jacque Jones, who he's telling the mutual friend, hey, she's mine. And then 2, he's telling Jane Doe, you better step in line or else, because you don't know what else I may have.
Hey, I think we need to start this one with a disclaimer.
I would agree. So this podcast, we're here to talk about, it is California Civil Code 1708.85. The term is non-consensual disclosure of intimate materials. It's commonly referred to as non-consensual pornography, sometimes revenge pornography. Also, some of the words are going to be coercive imagery, or using images as a way to coerce somebody. And so this has to do with the topic that is not necessarily the best for everybody, so please be forewarned. Today, we have a client who went through this, Jane Doe. There is an actual case, there was a trial, and she was victorious.
Yay.
Yay. But what I want to start out with is that just imagine yourself, right? You don't have to be 18, you don't have to be 16, you don't have to be 30. You could be in your 40s. You met somebody 20 years before. There was some sort of connection, but that person was married, and you think, whatever. Fast forward the 2 decades, and here you are. That person is no longer married. You run into each other. You're interested in the same things. You don't necessarily know what that other person has been doing for a while, but you have a connection. You get going. This person is super nice, texting, calling, very outgoing, charismatic. It also turns out that you don't really pay attention to it, but this person is a former Major League Baseball player, right? Went to the Olympics, all these fancy things, can probably walk into a room and, chest puffed and feel good about himself. You don't care because to you, it's just the guy that you knew 20 years ago. So anyways, hey, he's nice, you're going on. Somehow he's got this kind of job that takes him away for a while. So you're doing a lot of texting, a lot of not even calls, and then you get a request. Hey, send me a photo. You say, no, I'm in my 40s, I'm not going to do that. Eventually, it's just hammering, it happens. And you send just a couple photos. And that's totally cool. There's nothing wrong with that. And then things go south, and you have a mutual friend who has a last name with a W, and your friend, this guy who you thought was so nice that was in your life, happened to be working for the Washington Nationals. There's a W. And you break up with this guy because you're sick of his controlling ways. You're sick of everything. And then 2 or 3 days later, you get a phone call. And what happened was that mutual friend who you gave the hats to, Wolf, he posts something on Facebook and says, thanks to my homegirl, Jane Doe, for these hats, because his name ends with a W. And you find out that within 15 minutes of that post, this person who you had known for 20 years, who you thought was so nice, who did all of these things, sends a photo of you, nude. No, it's terrible.
No.
It's terrible.
It's a nightmare. If somebody were to send a picture of me, if a nude photo, that would be awful. Just like even a bad photo of yourself. Think about how bad that is. Someone
exactly.
posts like a really crappy picture of you online. You're like, take that down. Never mind sharing things that are intimate. And that's such a violation.
And more than that, the 2 big things that happen with that intimate photo, it is weaponized, because what you have is this former Major League Baseball player, Jacque Jones, who he's telling the mutual friend, hey, she's mine. And then 2, he's telling Jane Doe, you better step in line or else, because you don't know what else I may have.
So that's threatening.
It's threatening. It's an absolute threat. And so
awful. So
today, and we want to thank Jane Doe for coming in. She's off camera because she shouldn't be on camera. This is the beauty of the Civil Code 1708.85. It allows the victim to file a lawsuit and proceed under the name Jane Doe, so you don't have to re-expose yourself. And so what we wanted to do today in this podcast with Kerrie and Rory, Unseen Impact, we want to look at the unseen impact of non-consensual sharing of these photos. And so
some people call it revenge porn. No?
Some people call it revenge porn. Strong? I think it's strong, but it makes sense. Revenge porn, commonly known as non-consensual pornography. Essentially, you didn't give somebody permission, and they send out these photos either to get back at you, whatever it may be. But so we're here today to talk about the unseen impact of that. And of course, we have our former client, Miss Doe, and we have Dr. Savories. How are you doing today?
Good.
Yay.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, thank you for joining us. She is a neuropsychologist at BrainWorks Behavioral Health. And so she's here to kind of help us walk through this process of how do we get from super nice person to like absolutely devastating portion of your life. And so just before we really
thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for being here.
For having me.
And before we really get into it, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what your practice entails, how you ended up here with us?
Sure. My name is Dr. Joanna Savarese. I am a clinical neuropsychologist, and I've been running BrainWorks Behavioral Health for about the last decade. And I specialize in a lot of assessments and testing, a lot of ADHD evaluations, autism evaluations, learning disorder evaluations. But I also have a clinical psychology, license. And so I've spent a lot of my career in clinical psychology. So understanding, obviously, human behavior from lots of different viewpoints, psychodynamic, psychoanalytic, cognitive behavioral, trauma. And so I'm here today to talk about the impact, the unseen impact that Jane has experienced, and also to kind of talk about the characteristics and the kind of character flaws that women and men oftentimes don't recognize and see as red flags.
So
when we get into a relationship.
So do you think that there are ways like we can avoid that? Like, well,
Yes.
yeah, like we can say like, oh, like maybe, so like Jane Doe knows now it's too late, right? But like some of the listeners who are like, oh wait, I guess I didn't think about looking out for that when I start dating somebody new. Well, maybe Jane, you can tell us a little bit about, I mean, Rory summarized the story, but like when you first met him, it was kind of cool.
Well, I met him 20 years ago, and
Yeah.
it wasn't like that.
No.
No. But when we started talking again, he had been in the middle of a divorce, and he was very nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big trigger. And that I want to kind of look at and analyze is looking back. Right now I can look back on it because I'm very familiar with this whole case. We ended up having to try the case in front of a jury. And so you can think, how could this guy ever be that way? And you got to think there's some sort of performance aspect in that. That somehow, how can somebody be so mean and yet be so nice to you in the beginning? And so tell us, what were some of the things that made you think, hey, this is a nice guy?
No, well, I wasn't ever intimidated or anything by him. He was very nice. He made sure to reach out daily, multiple times a day, which I should have known was a little different. We had a lot in common. We know a lot of the same people, so we did get along.
And he probably seems safe, especially if you knew him 20 years ago and then you have common friends. Like, to me, all of those check the boxes of like, this must be a safe person for me.
Yeah. Was he also like, how did he initially approach you? Was there a lot of texting? Was there a lot of like love bombing? Was there a lot of, you're so beautiful, I want to see you, let's hang out? Like, tell me a little bit about how he kind of drew you in.
Well, previously, before he reached out, he had been trying for years, but he was married. So when he was in the middle of his divorce, he did see me through Facebook and reached out there. I was a little busy for a while, so he just kept pursuing us meeting and going to dinner, which we did. And he was just very nice, always trying to see how I was doing and see when the next time we could see each other. And then he never told me. I thought he was just retired, that he was golfing all the time. So then he went away because he had to go to work, which was coaching the Washington Nationals. So after that, it was just a lot of just talking, texting.
So it's interesting too, because when men are in the middle of a divorce, or women are, this also, by the way, can apply to women and their behavior. When men are in the middle of a divorce, and especially men who need attention, or whose men ego basically thrives on the attention and validation that they can receive, they will often reach out to a secondary source of what we call supply. So if he wasn't getting the attention from his wife or ex-wife at the time, then he needed to still be fed. His ego still needed to be fed. And interestingly, even chaos feeds that ego. So whatever he was potentially getting from his wife or ex-wife, even if it was chaos, was still some sort of like supply for him.
It's so interesting that it's called supply, right? Because it makes sense.
Right.
And I really like it described that
air.
way. Yeah.
It's like air that they need to breathe. It's like an air supply.
Yes. So right.
Did you sort of feel like you needed to like answer to him or kind of let him know about your whereabouts? Like he was sort of, on you about like what you're doing during the day. Where are you going? Was there anything that started feeling that way?
Yes. It was daily.
Well, and I can tell you because as having to go through all of this, looking through thousands of text messages, and it was this same sort of like, where are you at? I mean,
Right.
at one point I'm reading these and I'm like, this is like there's some sort of like beacon on it. I mean, this was a few years ago. Now it's like, hey, find my phone or find my device,
Right.
and you can keep track of somebody. But some of it's almost like, hey, there's questions getting asked here.
That you have no right to actually ask.
But the big thing too is that so I know where physically you're at.
Yes.
You at work, you at
Right.
the store, you
Right.
at
Well, it's
somewhere
so
else.
controlling.
Control.
Did it feel controlling?
You could actually tell him where you're at. You could take a photo and show him where you're at. And he still had to have constant communication with you. It was so bad that my father was like, is that him again? Because it was just nonstop.
Wow.
It was nonstop. And you could tell him that you were with your family and send a picture to prove it.
Right. But what's interesting too is that this is like the cycle. It's like somebody enters into your life, they start engaging with you, they start making you feel good because who knows where you were at in your life, right? Maybe you were vulnerable or maybe you liked the attention because it kind of sometimes can feel really good. This man cares about me.
Right.
It's like in some
who's paying
senses you're like, hey,
attention.
this is
Yeah.
hitting the boxes.
Right.
And he knows my friends and I've known him for
Right.
years. Like, yeah.
And then
knowing
all of a sudden
person.
you're like in this relationship that you did not even sign up for.
No.
Right.
Oh, that's so interesting. Did you feel like it suddenly became a relationship that
No. It was more just kind of a pain. It was getting to the point where it's not like we would see each other often. It was just a lot of texting.
so do you think that made him more desperate for you? Does that make that maybe that sounds a little strong, but
I think it's no, it's just that it made it that was the only way in which he was able to control you and kind of manipulate whatever the dynamic was at the time.
But the thing is this is that regardless of how many photos or where it's at is what is the weapon that is getting used? And here it truly was a weapon that was getting used.
Yes.
And it was, maybe there was other things, maybe there was other films that were secretive. We don't know. I've had cases where it's turned out that the man has secretly filmed the woman. We don't know if it was there, but what he did is he had one where, yes, it doesn't show the face, but he identifies Jane Doe in this photo that went to this mutual friend. And so what it's saying is it's telling the mutual friend again, hey, that's mine. And it's telling Jane Doe, this is the beginning if you don't get back in line. And I think for me, looking back on it, and I'm very interested to get your perspective, because to me, that's huge. It's a weapon.
Well, yeah, because he was going to expose you before you exposed him. So what happens with men like this or women, I don't want to just say men, but individuals like this is that their biggest fear is being exposed because a lot of what they wear are masks about who they are and how they are in the world. And so you're actually not really ever seeing their true
So like it's even a mask of being nice.
A mask of, yeah,
I'm
charming,
being
nice, successful, blah, 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 whatever he was doing in his life to sort of make him look like he was some successful, charming, good man. And that was a mask. So the biggest fear of people that have this level of control is that they will be exposed about who they really are. So he tried to expose you first and keep you in line and control you before you exposed him. Little did he know that you held the power, because look where we are now.
I know. No, and I mean, this is the one thing you learn quickly, that you don't mess with this Jane Doe. But still putting that aside, Doctor, you and I were talking about this yesterday, and you sent me something, and I don't know if you had seen, like, you had not seen some of her symptoms, but you said, like, from the image coercion, what comes from that. And it was spot on. Every single thing.
Well, let's hear from Jane.
Yeah.
You know, so like what happened? So, okay, this happens, the incident happens. And then like, I just think about, I'd want to, first of all, like crawl into a hole.
Once he sent the photos off in his messages to our mutual friend came to show me, so I actually saw. And there was more than one image. But then the next day, another mutual friend sent the threats. And the threats were basically to obey him, do what he says, or else he'll send more. And that makes you sick.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop it.
Right.
Then you're seeing in your phone the nasty messages that you're getting from other men that you don't even know, and the excessive amount of friend requests, and it just gets worse.
What kind of like, physical symptoms did you have?
Throwing up, diarrhea, can't sleep. So within the first week, I had lost 7 pounds, and I don't really have 7 pounds to lose.
And what was the fear? So did you think to yourself, if I don't send him another picture, he's not going to quit or he's not going to stop?
He didn't ask for more.
He didn't ask for more pictures.
He asked me to obey him.
Just obey him. Okay.
Do what he said.
So, right. So I guess so then if you didn't obey him, were you afraid of what he was going to do?
Right. And then I felt like he probably did record us having sex in his room, in his house.
Well, and I think that's the big thing with this, because it's not just in this particular case. I've seen this from every single one of these non-consensual pornography cases that I've had. Every one of them, regardless of how small, big, bad, worse, whatever it is, everyone says, and this came from Jane Doe initially, hey, when I walk into any room, a restaurant, my family's room, and somebody looks at me, I automatically think I freeze, I get sick, and I think they've seen me naked. They've seen those photos.
What an awful feeling.
happens.
And you can sit there. Yes, I think sometimes it actually does happen.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I would imagine as the victim, you can sit there and objectively think, there's no way, but how do I know? And for me, the torture, and this is torture, that's where it comes in.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, I mean, you've been violated. And I mean, essentially what happened is that somebody violated you, somebody betrayed you, and that literally made you ill. And then you don't know, it's out of your control. So you don't know who has had access to it. You don't know who has seen the picture. And so you're living in a fear state. And so your sympathetic nervous system is ultimately responding to you being in a fear state. And then a lot of times for people, when you're in that fear state, and a lot of times for individuals who have had kind of these what look like kind of narcissistic abusive relationships, is that the only person that can actually soothe that fear state is the one who has hurt you. And that's the hard part.
Does the person who hurt you know that? Does the narcissist know that?
Oh, yeah.
Getting
Calculated.
So twisted.
Does that resonate?
Yes, he did send another mutual friend to send his apology and flowers, which I told to stick up his, you know what. There's no way. There's no way to fix that. Once you send the photos off and the threats that you did send through mutual people, there's no forgiving. You can't even fix that.
Did he take any accountability of what he did?
No, he never did. I never spoke to him again.
Talking about accountability, taking from his deposition, which was used at the trial, so this is all public record. So some of the stuff to start out with, when he was really requesting these photos from Jane Doe, she says, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then finally he says something about, I'm not going to do anything silly with them, right? So we just hold on to that one for a moment. We're not going to do anything silly with them. So here we are. We're deposing Jacque Jones. So that means we're in a conference room. He's sitting there. He has to tell the
A
truth.
50-year-old man using the word silly.
A 50-year-old man using the word silly.
I have that's the best word he could come up with.
With nude photos as he's asking from a woman.
Which like from a kind of developmental standpoint, that sort of shows you where his development is from a psychological neurodevelopmental standpoint, using the word silly as a grown man. Very childlike, right?
It is.
Right. Very infantile.
Point.
Like my kids don't even use the word silly.
Would this be common for narcissists? Or do you think that it's just, or
To use that word.
yeah,
Well, I think there's a
the type that sort of
I think it just shows a little bit more his level of immaturity or like unsophistication, if that's even a word, lack of sophistication in his thinking, right? It's just like a juvenile, young, like little boy.
that is right.
Right.
That's a
No,
very
Does
good
that make
point.
sense?
Yeah.
Right. I'd be like,
Right.
silly? Am I going to do anything
Well-
silly with it, Mom?
If
Right.
then
Right?
you'll
Yeah.
love this one.
Right.
So again, this was part of the trial. This was part of the trial. So there's a question. This is an attorney. So the question is from the attorney. The answer is from Jacque Jones, former MLB star. Question. Okay. So what does it mean that you're not going to do anything silly with them? Answer. I'm not going to do anything silly. Just, it doesn't have a specific meaning. Question. Does it mean that you're not going to share the photo with anybody? Which, as a side note, I think is a pretty good assumption.
Considering, right, that's what happened.
Getting back to the real answer. Answer. It doesn't mean anything in particular. It just means I'm not going to do anything silly with them. Question. Do you think it would be okay to share this photo with anyone? And I'll say on a side note, this was the golden question. And it's so easy. Do you think it would be okay to share this photo with anybody? And the answer, although this is written down in the transcript, there was this long pause. So if you imagine, that's a pretty simple one. No, it isn't okay. But the answer, I think if you send things, you open yourself up for someone to intercept something to get out. So I mean, anything can happen with anything that you send. Any photo you send to anyone at any time.
Right. So I guess I'm curious, like, because you've read this, right? Like, what is your take? Like, because what is I guess resonating or triggering you about that response? Because I know the psychological process that's happening, like what he's doing, but you're picking up on it, but you might not be labeling.
Well, so from the legal standpoint,
Right.
I'm sitting there trying not to have a WTF look on my face.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me?
Right.
This is under penalty of
Yeah.
perjury?
Yeah.
So it's like when you're lying,
So interesting. Right.
you're lying.
Right.
How do you see it?
Okay. So what you're actually experiencing is gaslighting.
Okay.
So that's what that is. So basically, he sent the photo. He knows exactly what he's done, but he will not take accountability
Right.
for what he did. So narcissists, and I don't know this man well enough to say he has
Yeah.
narcissistic personality disorder. Does he have traits from what I know about the disorder? Of course, absolutely, right? Like he hasn't been in my office, I haven't tested him, et cetera, et cetera. But given the scenario, given what you've described, that's what it's obviously sounding
So
like. But
Let me help you out with one thing.
Yeah.
Now you're saying without taking responsibility, and that's a big thing from the legal aspect. You know, the joke is, you know, Bill Clinton wasn't impeached because of sexual relations with an intern. He was impeached because he lied about it.
right.
Right. And you know, humans can forgive bad actions.
Of
but
course.
they can't forgive
Right.
when you fail to take responsibility.
Yes.
So getting to that one, now on the tails of this question, does that mean you think it's okay for you to share this photo with anyone? Answer, I think based on this photo, there's no face in it. I don't know who it is. I mean, whether I shared it or not, I mean, my thinking is different than anyone else's.
Right.
Like,
Right. So, I mean, that's just gaslighting. I mean, that's exactly what that is. So he will not take accountability for his actions because a narcissist or an individual who has a psychological makeup as such that you are reading and describing will never fully take accountability for what they have done, because then they have to look at themselves and they're the true self that sent that photo. The true person, the one who is shameful and guilt-ridden and lack of confidence and poor self-esteem and feels abandoned all the time, they have to look at that. So they can't look at that. So they have to go, they have to keep making excuses. And that's why they can never fully take accountability. So they would rather sit up there and look like that than actually take accountability, because any grown, mature man would say, no, that was not right.
yeah.
That was not right of me to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to take accountability, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for sending that, because that was humiliating for you. but they can't do that. They have to gaslight. That's exactly why it's throwing you like that.
Yeah.
That feeling of like, wait a minute, you did something, but you're not admitting it. And I know you did it, and we're on trial because you did it.
And now you're saying I don't
And you
know.
don't
I
even
don't know if it is.
I don't know if it is. That is gaslight. Exactly. And that is what most women in narcissistic abusive relationships live all the time, in that state of confusion, because a narcissist will make you feel confused. That's the whole point. He's trying to make you feel confused, and which you are, which is why you brought it up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's so interesting. I didn't see it that way.
It's wild. So here's a question, taking a step from this realm of these actions. So one case I had, it was this girl who she was, 18 years old, the first sexual experience, and was dating this guy. They were in a committed relationship for like 3 or 4 years, and he filmed everything. And she just said, hey, at the time, I didn't know better. I just thought that's what they did. And then fast forward 10 years, they broke up. Now she's married, she's got kids, and somebody calls her and says, hey, you need to look at this. And the dude had posted a few of these things. And then apparently what happened is, because it's all on the phone, like when you go to select 3 photos and text it to somebody, you
Right.
inadvertently select 5
Right,
photos.
right.
Well, apparently what he had done on this terrible pornography site is he had meant to do 2 or 3, but he uploaded like 6.
I mean, that's what he said.
It was millions of
Exactly.
said.
millions of.
It was an accident.
It was an
I didn't
accident.
mean to do that.
Right.
Well, but what was weird is I kind of believed him, because he said, no, I meant to do those 2.
Oh, so
I
he's
didn't-
admitting like,
Oh,
oh, I want
It was
to.
wild. But so when he's saying this, and the whole thing is that guy just didn't want his mom to know what he did. But I'm wondering, what is the type of person that does this, right? Yeah, talk about a child.
Yeah.
But is that a narcissist as well?
I mean, I would have to know a lot more about the history of that relationship. I think that as healthy brained individuals, we trust people. We trust people.
Right.
We just sort of do, except for your shirt today, which says trust no one, which now, like,
get
it's
it.
very hard to trust people, right? Because we're living in an age
Right.
where everybody is having, well, we shouldn't say everybody, a majority of people are having really bad experiences with relationships and trust. And so now you're going to be a lot more cautious, of course. But the normal healthy brain trusts another individual to not do something disrespectful, to not lie, to not steal. That's sort of like normal. So then when somebody comes off that way, like they would never do that to you, and then does that to you, it is such a mind, what, because because you as a healthy individual would not do that.
Right.
So it's so hard to understand how somebody else could, that loved you, that said they loved you, that you trusted, that made you feel loved and trusted and trustworthy.
For someone that's almost 50 years old.
Right.
Yeah, someone,
Right. Like an adult, mature,
Right.
supposedly person that shares friends with you and that you've known for
Right.
years. And
I mean, the guy
such
that
a
accidentally
violation.
uploads something, who knows what
I mean,
that guy-
he intentionally did it. I mean, and then on that gross thing,
Right.
there was 2 other girls that he had. So this guy, he's
it's a thing for him.
He's a creep ball. He
Right.
films everything, he posts them.
Right.
Ugh,
But I was always
God,
curious
be
about that one.
careful
Yeah.
out there,
So
everybody.
here's one question I have
Right?
for you from the psychological sense, right? Because this is it creates absolute chaos.
Yes.
For this Jane Doe and
Yeah.
all the other Jane Does, because one is that, as Kerrie, as you were saying, hey, even a bad photo of me I don't like, right?
Right.
Fully clothed, bad photo, I don't want up there. And now you have this all of a sudden, hey, I trusted this person, now I don't trust him, and now should I trust anybody? So tell us, what are some of the things? So for people who are listening, and they can say, I'm feeling that way, or my friend is feeling that way, and this happened to them. What are some of the other things that?
Red flags.
Yeah,
We need some red flags.
Well, so first, that experience of I loved and trusted somebody and then they betrayed me is and trying to negotiate that in your mind is called cognitive dissonance. So a lot of times in like trauma or abuse survivors, the woman and the men have what's called this cognitive dissonance, where they're trying to close the gap between who I thought you were and then who showed up. And so that is very disorienting.
Disorienting.
It's very
I really
disorienting.
like that word.
Yes.
Right.
So
Disorienting.
I don't know, Jane, if you were experiencing kind of like this disorientation in addition to some of your physiological symptoms like throwing up, diarrhea, not feeling well. But there is like the disorientation feels like almost like a brain fog.
Yeah.
Like you're just sort of, you don't really know your whereabouts. You're like, hello, is like nobody, lights are on, nobody's home. That's what that feels like. Because you're trying to make sense of 2 people one person with two different personalities that you're now as a human trying to integrate. So that's what causes that cognitive dissonance and that feeling of like disorientation.
Disorientation.
And, you know, like Rory, when you were talking about like it creates chaos, one of the things that Jane was saying earlier is just how like involved your family was, right? With your dad and your uncle and people who were so angry for you and the chaos that it would just create around your whole family. And like that, I can't imagine like it's drama and it's just like a lot of emotional burden. And did it take a long time to come through that? So we've talked a lot about him, but like emotionally, like did it take a long time for you to come through that? Or like even for like what happens to our victim in this situation, right? How did they come through it? And how did she come out and have another healthy relationship?
Right.
The way he is, he thinks he is better than everybody else and more important than everybody on earth. But he doesn't realize that, you know, everybody is equal and we all know a lot of people, and there's people in my family that are very well known as well. And he's not above anybody. So he sent a lot of threats. I take that very personally. It's just made it where you do close up your circle and you keep closing it and you keep closing it because it's not safe.
What is that not safe feeling like? What's your experience of that?
Okay, well, the not safe feeling was sleeping in my tennis shoes, ready to kill if I have to. Barely sleeping
Because you're on like
'Cause
high
you felt
alert.
threat. You felt
Yeah.
threat.
and it wasn't just for a couple days or a couple weeks. It went on for almost 2 years.
Right.
And still to this day, I'm ready. So if you want to come to my house,
Shoes are on.
Just make sure to knock.
Bats in hand.
Present yourself.
Yeah, you
I mean,
probably
is
have
that
to.
common, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Your body stays in a space of fight or flight for a long time. And one of the biggest things that you could do for yourself if you are going through this type of abusive relationship is to spend time regulating your nervous system. Because this is really a bit because you're in fight or flight.
Right.
You have to regulate your nervous system. So the first thing you should actually do is seek nervous system deregulation strategies, techniques, acupuncture, yoga, meditation, breathing, journaling, things that are going to bring your nervous system down so that you can become less symptomatic. Once your body is, trauma lives in our body,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that I would say that what we have found out in the last 10 years and 20 years of, these experts studying trauma is that the body doesn't lie. When we talk about like our gut feeling, that's your body being like, stay away. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Those butterflies were like, I'm actually going to shit my pants because this man scares me.
Yeah.
Not like, ooh, butterflies, like this is hot. No. It's like actually bad.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Right.
Like
right.
that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And so working on your nervous system and regulation of that nervous system is the best thing you can do for yourself initially. Once you get your body under control, you can start to get your mind under control. So that is really the first step if you're in this type of relationship.
So then what, yes, you're saying, so what are some things that you would suggest to somebody like, hey, go sign up for a yoga class or go for like a yoga studio or buy this
Yeah,
book?
you don't
Like,
even
what are
need
the-
that.
what
I
are the
mean,
little
the little
journal.
things. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, open up your
journaling.
Spotify app
Yeah.
and do a breathing exercise. Just breathe. Literally just breathe. Because not only are there physical symptoms like vomiting, diarrhea, hyper arousal, a lot of hypervigilance, heart rate increased, insomnia. There's also chronic pain. There's also headaches, neck aches. I talked about the brain fog. I mean, a lot of physiological symptoms related to trauma and abuse and narcissistic abuse in particular. So you can open up your Spotify app and really just do a breathing exercise, a deep breathing exercise, a yoga exercise, a meditation, anything that's going to bring your system down. A bath, hot water, hot shower can be really simple. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. This is like resources for everybody.
Right.
Just go on
YouTube,
YouTube,
go-
Right,
get a
right.
YouTube
Meditation,
video.
some
You can
breathing.
literally type in breathing exercise for trauma, narcissistic abuse recovery. You can find a million resources on Instagram,
I
literally.
bet.
And that's sort of like the immediate thing. But then over time, like what happens and how long does it take for it to go away? Or maybe it never does. You carry it around with you. It's
Well, the
like
reason why
grief.
and the reason why it's so particularly challenging is because they talk about how narcissistic abuse is actually and trauma and being in a relationship that is abusive is the trauma bond. And the
right.
trauma bond. So the trauma bond is
Right.
like such a hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally more difficult to get unaddicted, sober from your trauma bond than it is literally from heroin.
Really?
Yes, because you're psychologically addicted to the person that is causing you harm because then they take your harm away. And that's the cycle. It's the cycle of
geez.
intermittent reinforcement. So I'm not exactly sure how it's played out entirely in your dynamic, but I'm guessing that there is a period of where it's like he causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain. And then there's a period where he comes back and he's like normal and he's buying you flowers, or it's like more, it's more kind. And then this other person shows up and you're like, oh, okay, we're back to normalcy. And then you're always on eggshells and you're always in that like sympathetic arousal state, wondering when the next bomb is going to drop. And so it's like this cycle that continues, and that's the trauma bond. So it's very difficult to break that cycle. So a lot of times people experts really talk about is like no contact. Like that kills a lot of that cycle. It's like going sober, right? Is abstinence.
Yeah.
Right.
Abstinence.
Well, and my sense of it is that this was, looking at everything, this wasn't his first rodeo.
No, right.
But it's just that
Wow.
Jane Doe wasn't going to have it, and so luckily she could do it. Now, I mean, some of it is that's a bold move. What he did, that is a bold move, and the response and our actions were there and were legitimate. And one of the things that happens with it is that this was a few years ago, and it's becoming more prevalent. There's like good and bad with it, and I think some of the good that comes with it is that now we're prepared,
Right.
and we know a little bit more about what's going on,
Right.
both in the legal structure, both on kind of culturally what's going on. People are now more aware that this can happen than they were, let's say, in 2017, right? But I think it was about 2016 that the law changed, where there's a civil code that 1708.85 that it as I'd mentioned, but what it does is it allows the victim to file a lawsuit for damages, right? So meaning that for the harm that's suffered. and it's
Absolutely.
great. And then the other thing that it does, which has been very powerful, which we've done with quite a few people, is you get to get an immediate temporary injunction.
What does that mean?
And so what the temporary injunction is you get to stop that person from continuing to distribute the
I
material,
see.
continuing to keep it up on the porn page,
Yeah.
continuing to send it out to friends.
Right.
And just practically speaking, what it does is it says, I got eyes on you. The law has eyes on you.
So Jane, so it makes me think about like what made you decide like, hey, I'm gonna do something about this? Because a lot of people would just be like, all right, I'm done with this dude. I can't believe that happened. Like, how can this get even taken down off why would I seek an attorney? Do you know, like think about people who are out there. And I mean, I know you as a strong woman and you are strong minded. And so I think you could tell people, but I think it's a brave thing to do. And it's also risky, right? Because like, did you know this civil code number bloody existed? No, but you were like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I'd love to hear like,
Well, honestly, it took maybe a week and a half before I called the police, and I was a mess. I had no idea what it was. They didn't know what kind of crime it was. They gave me a little bit of, it's going to take time to pull all the evidence and this and that, and there was a lot of questioning with the DA of what crimes were committed.
Right.
And then I was told to call attorneys. I was just calling attorneys. I had no idea what kind of attorneys I was calling.
right.
They were criminal attorneys. So then a friend of mine told me about Rory, and I still had no idea what the difference is until somebody explained O.J. Simpson, criminal, O.J. Simpson, civil.
Oh,
Still comes back to OJ.
Then, yeah. And then what happened?
It always does.
right.
What happened was I was told by somebody very close to me, I won't say who, is to start the civil and the criminal will build itself. was a lot more than the 3 photos. The threats were very bad, but it takes you a lot longer to feel comfortable and even going places. I still don't feel too comfortable doing that. Don't want to really run into our mutual friends. Don't want to ever run into him.
Right. So then it probably changed your social circle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's for the better.
Well, and I think
Still, that's tough.
this is one big point about, all of this stuff originated from a penal code, from criminal. But the criminal one is that they have different parameters they're looking at, and it's nearly impossible to get the police to move on it. And I can understand, because it's just that the criminal system is not set up to adjudicate these things, right? What they're basically saying is that we're going to leave this to just regular people to adjudicate it in the civil side of things. And rather than having criminal penalties, we're going to attach that they have to compensate the victim for everything that went wrong. And so that's where there's some it is a very, very strong law. It is very effective. It is very powerful. And this is where justice comes from.
Well, so Jane, do you have any advice for people out there if they're have experienced this?
Oh, definitely get help. You have to get help before you do something illegal and end up in jail.
Well, what do you think about that though? Because I feel like, victims get to this point, right? They're she's completely out of control for all of the things that have happened to her. This change in her social circle, her father and her uncle, people are like,
Well, you brought the control back to you, and you exposed him, and really you became the powerful one in the dynamic. In a dynamic that he was trying to control, you wound up ultimately controlling it, and ultimately winning from his abuse.
right.
I still feel we both lost.
I understand,
right.
absolutely, but it is a game of power and control.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that's the whole reason why you were in this, because it is a game of power and control. And people like him, he probably really never thought that you were going to expose him.
Never.
Yeah, probably. Right.
Never.
So that is the truest form of, I don't even want to use the word flattery because that would not be the appropriate word.
Right.
But they have to be exposed so that people can learn from the experience.
Right.
And that, he may never learn from it, the real lesson in it. That
You don't do this.
yeah, you just
Right.
don't
do
Right.
this.
Right.
But there's a lot of cases of financial exploitation,
right.
medical exploitation.
yeah.
I mean,
That is what the police did say. It was extortion, because that's what he was doing. He was extorting me. The threats were extortion.
what were some of the threats?
The threats were basically, you do what he says, obey him, or else he's sending more.
This is, again, it's all of this is about power.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the
At the end of the
currency.
day, it's
Currency
power
is
and
the
control.
power.
Right. Right.
Well,
Wow.
this is I want to thank Jane Doe. I remember after this happened, Jane Doe, thanking you for pushing it forward. This is very hard. It was very hard to do, but one of the biggest things for this is that, and one of the major pushes on the podcast is to show that this happens and that there are steps that you can take. You can seek justice. You can regain that sort of power, that sort of footing. And so I want to thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Thank you. It
I
was
do
very
wanna
brave.
also say, that I think one thing that was particularly great in your case is that you had an incredible support system.
Right. Yeah.
So that probably got you through. For a lot of people, they don't have that.
No, they don't.
Right. And they feel very isolated because the individual has typically isolated them from their family and friends. And so for individuals who might be listening to this, seek support,
Say definitely
professional help.
support. I also would not trust, these men or women that are, you don't know the size of these cameras anymore. You can't really trust people.
We did a podcast on that.
Yeah.
We did a podcast on that.
Yeah. Well, and with AI and everything, what even is real anymore?
Right.
Right.
Oh, it's so scary. Yeah. But thank you for coming on. It was very, very brave of you to, pursue legal justice in the first place. And then, to come here, it's a whole other thing. So thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jane.
And Dr. Savories from BrainWorks Behavioral Health, thank you so much for coming and kind of giving us that sort of explanation of what is going on the psychological side. I do think that that's going to help people. So thank you very much. For all the listeners, thank you for staying with us. We know this was a topic that was a little bit different than most. It was a little bit heavier, but I think very, very important. So if you know anybody who's going through this, or you are going through this yourself, watch, rate, review, subscribe, get onto us, give us a call if you have any questions, and we're here for you. Once again, I'm Rory. This is Kerrie. This is Unseen Impact. Thank you.
Thank you.